I like to compare watching somebody do something that they're good at to a close-up magician, because you and I both know that that's not really magic, but when we watch it, there it is in front of our eyes. We could even ask them to break it down step by step and show us their technique, how they get from one movement to the next. And when they speed it back up, it's as if they didn't tell us anything. Now again, that is not actually magic you're seeing. That is dedication, that is knowledge and experience. So what I'm going to do today is reveal the trick to you. I'm going to show you step by step what I do to make a beat. And hopefully by the end of this video, you won't see what I do as magic. You'll see it as something that you can also do with enough dedication, experience, and knowledge. So a couple things before we get started. I'm going to use certain machines in this video. You don't need these machines. These are my weapons of choice. You can use another sequencer, another sampler, another keyboard. You could stick with just a computer or a smartphone. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. This video is all about general techniques and how they can be applied to any workflow. I'm not going to be able to sit here and tell you how to install your program or how to connect your audio interface, but you watch this video and you get the guidance you need in order to figure out how to do this on your own setup. So without further ado, let's get started. I have the Electron Octatrack in front of me. Say that 5 times fast. This is a hardware sampler and sequencer. It doesn't actually create any sound on its own. If I want it to make noise, I have to put noise into it and record that noise. And then I can play it back and manipulate it in all different kinds of ways. If you're on a computer or on your smartphone and you're using a music program, chances are it has instruments and sounds already built in and you can use those. But for what I'm doing, I need to generate all of my own sounds from elsewhere. And to help me with that, I have just off camera the Analog Rhythm Mark II, which is a drum machine. It's an analog drum machine. And I also have over here the Prophet XL, which is a synthesizer. And then I also have an Integra 7 over here, which is basically just like a box of sounds, different pianos and guitars and accordions and all that kind of stuff. Right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tracks, 8 different channels to put audio. So let's see what I have in my drum machine. These are sounds that are being generated from analog circuits. I like that snare. So I just recorded that. Now I have sound in here. Now, if you're on a computer, all this means is you just hook something up into your audio interface and you record it, and then you have the audio clip. But for me, that just means I recorded it and then I put it here in one of these slots. I want a snare, but I also want a hi-hat. So we're going to do that. Again, I'm just going to get a clip of it and we're going to go in here. And there we have it. That's our hi-hat. So now I have a hi-hat and I have a snare. That's cool. So we're going to go ahead and record that. All right. I made these sounds within my drum machine, and it's synthesis that's being used in order to create snares and kicks and hi-hats. If you're a stickler about that kind of stuff, when you want to learn how to use synthesis in order to create drum sounds, there's plenty of tutorials online that'll show you how to do that. If you don't want to deal with all that, you could just drag and drop kits that other people have created. But for intents and purposes here, I'm using drums that I created. So we now have a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat. We have enough to create a rhythm section, although I think I might want a couple more things. That hi-hat sounds pretty good, and so does that little open hat that's gated. So we're going to record these two. Great, so now we have 5 sounds. And with those sounds, I think we'll be able to create a pretty decent drum pattern. So let's do that right now. I'm just going to start laying things down. I'm going to bring this tempo up. I got a recording of this kick. Now that's all I have to work with. If I want to change the sound anymore, I have to treat it as an audio clip. And so that does limit some of the things that I can do, but there's still a lot, especially when you come into effects. I can lower and heighten the pitch. That's an octave up. That's an octave down. That's half an octave down. That sounds pretty good. I tend to be pretty simple when it comes to audio editing because the audio that I'm bringing in here I already like. So I don't like to do too much. Now that sounds good. I like that, but it might be a little too subdued for certain listening scenarios, like if you're on your phone. So here is a distortion that's going into the filter. You get pretty good, pretty grisly sounding. Now, if I bring in the snare again, I do like the way that those two play together. I'm going to distort the snare a little bit. I'm also going to put a little bit of delay on the snare. Cool thing about delay is that if you actually shorten the time of the playback, you can get some really cool spatial effects. You up the feedback. Now what's happening there is there's a lot of instances of the delay. So if I bring this back down in time, you can hear how it just keeps going. I just want it to sound more live. Now let's adjust the pitch of that snare a little bit. What you can do is if you have an audio clip, you can have an envelope that gives you an attack, a decay, a sustain, and release. And those are just controls that can let you shape the volume of the sound. So like if I were to bring up the attack on this kick, you see how it took out like the bite, the front end of that sound? Let's bring something else in the fold. We're going to bring in this hi-hat. Let's just do a very basic hi-hat pattern right there. For me, it feels a little bit stiff. So here's where I kind of start to bring in a little bit more feeling. You can actually nudge these notes. And you can do this on any program that has a high resolution in your sequencer. The snares aren't lining up with the hi-hat. Now I have to make a decision. Do I push the snares back to meet where the hi-hat is, that it's late? Or do I bring the hi-hat closer to where the snare is and make the hi-hat feel a little bit more drunk? So right now what I'm doing is I'm actually bringing some of them back to being on time, and then I'm moving some of them to be even more off time. See, now that feels better to me. So I'm going to use reverb in order to make the sound feel a little bit less sterile. Just dialing in the reverb here. I was trying to find a pitch with the hi-hat that actually matched the pitch of the snare and the kick. You want your kits to be in tune, so I think that works. I'm going to lower the volume of the hi-hat so that way it has less presence. So now I have this open hat a little bit that I want to use. I'm kind of thinking of like the kick and the snare as the center of gravity for the rhythm. So like that could be a little bit later, you know. I actually really like the sound of that. Okay, so we have these drums here. Right now they're occupying 4 tracks. So if I were to just leave them the way they were, I'd only have 4 tracks left. That's bass, keys, and 2 leads. I could do it, but I want more room to play with. Now, if you're working on a computer, you don't have to think about this. Computers have like unlimited tracks pretty much. But for me, I'm going to resample these drums. Now, in this particular machine, I just have to create a recording trigger, and I just have to tell it what to resample. And so when I start playing, it's recording. All right, we have that. Okay, so now I took these 4 tracks that I was using to create the drums, and now they're just happening on one. I like to do some additional effects and mixing in order to get it to sound a little bit more glued together. So right now, if I bring in the delay, it's going to delay everything. See how everything kind of has like that slight bouncy delay to it, very short? I'd say that sounds pretty banging right there. Okay, so now that we have the drums, we don't have to worry about the drums anymore. Today, we're focusing on sample-free or, royalty-free sort of like sampling. I'm taking recordings that I'm making and then I'm editing them in a box like this instead of like Pro Tools. Sometimes I don't do drums first. Sometimes I'll just play along on the keyboard until I find something that is inspiring, and then I'll just work from there. And something that I do in order to get past needing to know everything is I use the Irving Berlin method. Now, if you don't know who Irving Berlin is, he's one of the most important composers in American history. He was a Jewish immigrant, and he wrote a lot of songs. He wrote, White Christmas, and he wrote this, God Bless America. And so he didn't know how to play in all different kinds of keys. So what he did is he learned one key, and then he had a piano made especially for him that had a crank on the bottom of it. And he would twist this crank whenever he wanted to play in a different key, because all these notes are doing in the piano is they're directly in line in front of a hammer, which then hits a specific string, which plays the note. So if you turn a crank and physically move all of the keys to a different position, it would go up the scale, down the scale. Luckily, we don't need to have to commission crank turning pianos in our houses anymore. We can just use the transpose function. I have one key that I play in. And then, well, let's find a more pleasing sound, please. Oh, perfect. Okay. So what I do is I have, one scale that I like to play in all the time. And then if I want to play in a different scale, and this is great if you're just more concerned with getting your ideas out rather than doing everything properly. Doesn't matter really how you get to the finished product. What matters is the finished product itself. It helps that if you're going to be doing this method that you actually learn chord voicing and different fingering and stuff. I understand that there are drawbacks to this technique. It's harder to play along with others before doing a lot of prep work to find out, what key you should be transposing to. And it makes it a little bit more difficult to do key changes. But the good thing is that key changes are typically not too far away from the original key. It's usually like one note that's different or two notes that's different. Unless you're playing like, giant steps or something, you're not going to be all over the place. So let's play the drums and let's see if I can find something I like. Let's find a different sound. So I like this sound. And instead of playing to the drums, what I like to do is I like to just kind of turn the drums off, play at my own timing, and kind of just get a feel for, where I want to go with it. Right now, I'm just kind of amassing the material and then using this to build a chord structure later on. I think we have enough there. So the more I can detach myself from the finished product while I'm doing this part, the better the track seems to come out. So here we have the recording that I just made, and you can see each one of these bursts of noise makes it easier for me to slice, really, which is what I'm going to have to do right now. Because when I chop it up, then I'm going to be able to put each of these chords on one individual button. So now I'm no longer thinking of it as one composition or one recording. Now I'm thinking of it as building blocks for what's about to happen. It's simple, but I like it. See what I mean? Now let's see what happens when we pitch up the audio recording. There's something here. Let's start with that. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. Boom, boom. Wow, I like this. There we go. All right, I like this so far. Because I moved the pitch of the chords up by 4. I have to do the same thing on the synthesizer now. So now I'm back in the normal pitch of a keyboard, funny enough. I like the way everything's coming in all at once on these chords. That's pretty cool. It's all about, feeling around for good ideas. That's sick. Should I keep it? I'm going to keep it. It's not like an overarching melody. It's not like this big emotional thing, but I think it plays really nicely with the chords. So now we have one track that's just the drums. We have one track that's just the chords. And now our third track is this playful little Rhodes. So now we have this as an audio clip. So now I can do certain things to make it feel a little bit more lived in, lively, things that I kind of wish that were a part of the original recording. So I put a little delay on it, put a little distortion on it, taking out some of the lows, put a little bit of a LFO pitch wobble on it to make it feel more like it's from like a cassette tape or something. I'm going to make it go back and forth in the field. And what this is going to do is while the kick and the snare and the chords are kind of holding down the middle, this is going to be allowed to kind of wave back and forth like a kite in the wind. Now I think we need kind of like a minimalist sort of bass part. So I've come up with a bass line that's literally just 4 notes. Okay, so we're just going to record this bass line. Super simple. I didn't want it to be too crazy. I just wanted it to mirror a little bit of the chords. I kind of didn't want the entirety of the bass register to be tacked on to, the shape of the chords, because that's what was happening. It doesn't have that sort of dip. So now the bass feels independent of the chords. Now that I'm taking out some of the bass of the chords, the parts in the pattern where I'm not playing bass, it's leaving room open. So now it's not like completely bombarding you with, the bass register every single time the chords come in. But what I like about this thing is it lets you use samples or sound libraries that are included in it with the machine as sound sources in order to develop new sounds. So like this is using one of the pianos that comes with the unit, and I'm just using it to affect the sound in certain ways. And my modulation wheel, as it goes up, it actually detunes the piano. Because the beat's already kind of weird, and I don't think that it would benefit from something super normal. Let's just lean into the weird, right? So, and then when you least expect it, just have it kind of go out of it. So we'll see what happens. Very nice. I dig that. And then now on track 5, we have this out of tune piano that I think works really well. Also, I kind of took out some of the lows here. It still has all the essential information that I need from this from that track. So I put a delay on the piano. What else is new? There's delays on everything. Dun, 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 dun. And then here's the Rhodes being brought back in. See how that piano's kind of like a little bit late? It's kind of waving in and around the timing. But it just works because everything else is locked in, you know? So I'm gonna add that. This right here. And then while I'm doing that, I'm going to be doing this. You know, some shit like that. Nice. That's track number 6. We have 2 tracks left after this. That's good. I like that. We have 2 more tracks. And I only think I'm going to use one of them for something melodic. I mean, if I use the last track, it might be something, I don't know. I'm not thinking that there's much else that can be done here. But I'm going to use this track to show you a different way that you can manipulate audio melodically. You know, let's just find a patch that we like. Perfect. Instead of like trying to play a performance, I'm just going to record the key like this. So I'm going to use this recording I just made of a bunch of different notes, and we're going to turn that into a melody. And it's just like the chords that we did at the start of this. So we're just going to create slices for each note. And again, you could do this on your own PC or machine. If you're on a computer, you can record all the notes individually and then chop them up and put them in like a sampler program. Or if you're on an MPC, you can just record it like this and then, you know, bring it into your machine and then auto chop. Okay, so instead of having an audio clip that I'm putting on top of the beat, now I just have all of these notes. So all of these notes are going to work. I'm going to go the other way with it. I'm going to make it like a plinky thing. Yes, I know. I've been abusing the delay. But you know what? Delay is pretty fantastic, and it has all different kinds of purposes. It's not just for the hello, hello, hello. You know what I mean? Because I'm actually not going to do like an audio recording. I'm going to be doing a MIDI recording. So every time it plays back the pattern, it's going to play the notes back in this sort of fashion. There we go. Nice and sparse. You know, sometimes B sections have different chord progression, or they even go into a different key. We're not doing that right now. We're just going to take the chord progression that we had in the first loop section, and we're just moving it on over. And we're going to build something different with it. We're going to remove the trigs. And we have one more track. So I'm going to use this to kind of a little bit of a flourish or something like that on this section that's a little bit more, you know, barren because we got rid of the Rhodes and the piano and stuff. And then we'll have 2 sections, and then we'll just call it a day. So let me find something. So I found like a little like jazz guitar sort of sound. It's kind of cheesy, but I'm gonna use it on here and see how it sounds. And a 1 and a 2 and a. now that we have, the second section with the jazz guitar, and we have the first section that has kind of all the other stuff going on, that's like kind of the hook, the chorus. But now that I'm back here, I'm kind of hearing that, it is a little like unfocused in the first part. So now I'm just bringing certain things into focus and I'm pulling other things back. I'm bringing that piano forward because I think that's the strongest part. Everything else is kind of playing supporting character. Actually, this one would be a great candidate for the open hat that we recorded at the beginning. There you go. Turning the delay down on that piano. Dope. I like this. I hope that this session helped you learn a little bit more about how I get the results that I get. It's really all just about kind of finding an idea and respecting that idea as you build on it. It's about finding your core elements in terms of your rhythm and where like the main meat of the beat is going to be. This one, it was the drums and the chord progression. Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching. If you do get some value out of this and you do want to support in some way, I have a Patreon. It has all the music made on this channel and there's a track uploaded every week. This particular beat that I'm making is going to be available as a project file for anybody who subscribes to the Patreon. So if you have an Octatrack and you want to kind of check out the guts of what I just did, join there and you'll be able to take a look. We're doing streams and those are kind of exclusively where my streams are going to be from now on. All right, that's it from me.